think enough cards have been released such that we need to seriously consider the possibility of playing a tag-based NBN deck using your hub instead of your usual Astrobiotics, and that is where I come in. How can I make a deck that is pretty dangerous? So here I present to you my solution. I'm splitting between the best of both worlds. You see, on one end you have snares and dedicated response teams and encryption protocols to protect them all, but we are not that. We don't have that much influence. Nerf Hub has 17, but that can only last for so long. So I'm taking a half-half strategy. I drop the DRTs so that I can splash more durable ice. Eli's, Architects, and Lotus Field. Those are very strong ice. This is my opening hand. This is my mulligan hand. Not much to say. Both hands don't have any early economy, which is what I'm looking for. My first hand was had two agendas, if I'm not wrong, so I had to mulligan it. This hand was slightly better. Or it might have only one agenda, but I didn't like it. And this hand has two snares, which is not actually a good thing. I don't like the snares because I won't have enough money to trigger them. Like right now, I'm forced to rest the Architect protecting R&D, which means that I cannot trigger a snare if he runs into one. He slams right into an Architect, and so I'm able to install two cards, but I make the mistake of not counting my cards properly. This caused me to bleed an NAPD to him. At least it's not a build on an Astro script, but if I were counting my cards right, I should have known not to install the Jackson from HQ, because that triggered an extra draw, which allowed him to access the NAPD. Alright, so on his first turn, first click, he runs into a snare, and I zap him with it promptly. So he loses 3 cards, and I see what kind of deck he's running. It's a stealth deck with David to cover the high strength ice. So he immediately clears the tag, smart thing to do, and draws up. Now, passing the turn over to me, I draw into a Snatch and Grab. Snatch and Grab is a pretty good card, but it's amazing when you have some sort of trace recurring credits to use, and that is where Petri Dish comes in. This deck runs 3 Petri Dishes to combo with Manhunt, which you also see in my hand. So basically, the job of my deck is to tax the runner every single turn. If they choose to run every turn, they are forced to take tax from Manhunt or beat the trace, which is going to be prohibitively expensive with Petri Dish. But this does require some setup. So right now, I'm setting up by installing some asset-based economy. There's Marked Accounts, and there's the Daily Business Show, which is a new card from All That Remains. This allows me to filter through my draws, which is very, very, very powerful outside of Astrobiotics, because this deck needs to make it to the mid-game in order to have a sizable number of assets, and Daily Business Show allows me to do that by burying agendas that I do not wish to see. Agenda flood is one of the worst things that can happen to most decks, and Daily Business Show takes care of that. In the meantime, he runs into a snare, and I'm 1 credit short of flatlining him outright. Well, he knows that he wouldn't have ran with 1 card in hand if I had at least 4 credits, so yeah, oh well. Now I'm forced to make a tough choice. Encryption Protocol versus Pet Campaign. I chose the encryption to protect my current assets. And since he's on 1 card, my Sweet is pretty useless, so that's very unfortunate. With that, I'm forced to install the Jackson, I believe, as my 3rd click. Yep. Just a public service announcement for those of you who are playing Daily Business Show on OCTGN. When you are presented with 2 cards and are asked to select one, you select the card that you want to bury, not the card that you want to keep in your hand. That's a mistake that everyone makes at the once only, but you don't want to make it and regret it. So yeah. Just like Mr. Lee, the way it works is you pick the card to bury, not the card to keep. So he draws up. So now I can actually choose to use my Sweep for 3 credits. Not the best, but well, I'm pretty desperate for credits right now. And then I initiate the Manhunt. So now, from now on, I'll start taxing him every single run. This is the best time to use Manhunt, when there are no agendas that are vulnerable to being scored. So as you saw, he was forced to play passively by drawing up and getting credits, with Lucky Find. In the meantime, I attempt to sneak an Astro script out, and then play Diversified Portfolio to boost up my credits. So one of those remote servers is an Astro script. I hope he doesn't run it. That would be a travesty. And on his first click, he runs the one Astro script. Oh well, there's nothing I can do about that. So I just res the Petri dish, at least force him to take the tag before Manhunt wears off. So Manhunt got to fire a total of 1 time. Terrible. That, yeah, I was getting greedy there. The whole point of this deck is to sneak out agendas on the table naked, and hopefully the runner will be very passive about running, because between Encrypted Protocol, which makes it very hard to trash your assets, and Manhunt, which taxes you every single run, you really don't want to run. But this Kate is very potent against my deck, because her one link means that it's very hard to get a Manhunt trace off, and her Desperado means that she can easily recover the credit needed to clear the tag. So it's not much tax that I'm actually imposing on this Kate, and you can clearly see that I'm suffering a lot as a result of it. I can't really sneak agendas out easily. Until now, he makes a very crucial mistake. He knowingly runs into an Architect on his last click. So I see the top 5 cards. I see an Astro script there that's definitely going on the table. I don't care. And I'm forced to draw the top 2 cards on my deck and bury 1 because of the daily business show. Then I realized that by doing so, I'm exposing myself to an agenda on R&D. But there's nothing much I can do at this point. So after installing the Astro script, I decide to install a card from HQ, which obviously will be the Snare. In retrospect here, I should have installed the Bew. He wouldn't run it again because it's his last turn. It's his last click of the turn. I made a huge mistake by installing the Snare instead. So because he ran there, I think, yeah, he scored an Astro script off the top. No, he didn't. He didn't score any agendas, thankfully. And yes, he does face check the other install that I made, and it was a Snare. I triggered it, of course, and he takes the damage. So now I have an Astro script live on the board. Thankfully for him, he already stole 1 Astro script from me, so the train isn't as much of a threat, and he allows me to fire Architect once more. Now this is not his last click, so I cannot safely install the Astro script this time. I'm making my calculations, and I realize that the top 3 cards are all not agendas. So what I will do, I will not install anything new. I will let him see the top 2 cards, and he cannot get any agendas because the top 2 cards are safe. He does manage to trash 1 Encrypted Protocol, and he runs through again on his 3rd click. Alright, the top 2 cards are still safe, but this time I decide to go for the marked accounts because I was very poor. I needed the money. And so I drew into the sweep. Then I installed, using the second subroutine of Architect, I installed a card from Archives, which was the Encrypted Protocol he trashed earlier. So this is the versatility of Architect coming to play. Admittedly, this shouldn't be the case because a smart runner would never run straight into an Architect. That is a very silly thing to do. So he runs through and accesses 2 cards. Nothing there because I used Jackson to shuffle my deck because I knew that he would hit an NEPD and an Astro script if I let him not access normally. Hence, I had to shuffle with Jackson. So back to my turn. I install the pet campaign and play Manhunt 1 more time. Hopefully this time the Manhunt stays on the table. So now he's forced to draw up and play his Mimic, which will get him through the Architect. I don't have much longer. I need to start getting agendas out. Alright, so I'm forced to play Sweep for 2 credits because I'm so poor. But by now, he was able to assemble his rig, which is Cerberus, Green Cerberus. This looks awfully like my kit deck, and well, it's going to be very effective at getting through my Eli and the Architect for very cheap 3 credits. All I can do is to trace him with Manhunt and hope he doesn't hit any agendas. If he does, my Manhunt will go off once again and I would have just wasted 3 credits. And he finds an NAPD. Goodness me. My Manhunt's gone. Again. What can I do? Alright, so I draw into Daily Business Show and Petri Dish. I install another Petri Dish, play a Sweep, and tap for 1 credit. By now, I've more or less conceded the game because he has found all his breakers that he needs to get through R&D cheaply, and he's seeing 2 new cards every turn. There's nothing I can do to stop him at this point. Of course, he top-selected the build to win the game. That was a very unfortunate game for me because every single time I played a Manhunt, he was able to get an agenda the very next run. So Manhunt only got to fire once off every single time I played it, which shouldn't be the case. So this deck is pretty vulnerable. It plays sort of like horizontal Jinteki, but without fangs, because when the runner steals an agenda, you don't have any way to punish them. Of course, you could say, hey, why don't you include mid-seasons then? Well, that requires a deck space which is very, very precious in this deck already. If to yours, this might come as a shock to you, but I'm actually playing only 10 pieces of ice in this deck. A couple of Data Ravens to go along with the Elis and Architects. That's all. So I'm running very ice light, and my only way of punishing the runner basically is to have them slam into my snares, which can happen on central server accesses. That is my additional protection of my central servers, but clearly it's not enough. This deck is not meant to flatline, don't get me wrong. There's a reason why I'm not playing Dedicated Response Team. It's not meant to flatline, it's meant to slow the runner down, prevent them from running every single turn, every single face down card, and this should hopefully give me some breathing room to sneak out an Astro Script, a build here and there to win the game. That's the game plan, it never worked. This runner was too good, or maybe I'm just too optimistic about this deck's concept. We'll see. I'll continue playtesting this. In the meantime, thanks for watching and happy net running. Goodbye.